Shalom Aleichem. How are you guys doing? Shavua Tov. I hope your guys' Shabbos was wonderful. Great. Shabbos Kodesh, a holy Sabbath. All right, I'm coming to you with not a Torah portion for the readings in synagogue, but I am reading in the book of Vayikra, which is Leviticus, in the Torah portion of Vayikra. All right, we are in the fourth reading, the fourth aliyah of this of Vayikra, and let us begin. Chapter 3, verse 1. This is Torah up here, Rashi down here. This is with Rashi as commentary. If his sacrifice is a peace-promoting feast offering, if he brings it from cattle, whether male or female, he must bring it unblemished before God. Verse 1, Rashi, peace-promoting. They are so called because they bring peace into the world. Another explanation, through them there is peace and harmony between the altar, the priests, and the owners. Verse 2, Torah. He must lean his hand upon the head of his sacrifice and slaughter it outside the entrance to the tent of meeting. Aaron's descendants, who are priests, must dash the blood in an encircling manner onto the altar. Verse 3, Torah. He must bring a fire offering to God from the peace-promoting feast offering, consisting of the fat covering the innards, all the fat that is on the innards. Verse 3, Rashi, all the fat. The term all is added to include also the fat on the abomasum. This is the opinion of Rabbi Ishmael. Rabbi Akiva says it is added to include just the fat upon the small intestine. Verse 4, Torah. I'll start with verse 3 because it's a full sentence. He must bring verse 3. He must bring a fire offering to God from the peace-promoting feast offering, consisting of the fat covering the innards, all the fat that is on the innards, the two kidneys, the fat that is on them, and that is on the flanks. He must also remove the diaphragm along with the kidneys and along with the part of the liver. Verse 4. And this is Rashi. The flanks in Old French. Scripture expresses itself in this manner since the fat upon the kidneys, when the animal is alive, is at the upper end of the flanks, and the kidneys are under it. This refers to the fat under the loins, which is called lonbels in Old French. It is the white fat that is visible on the upper part of the flanks, but on the lower part of the flanks, the flesh of the flanks covers it. This is the protective wall, the diaphragm, called ebris in Old French, and in Aramaic, the lobe of the liver, literally on the liver, means that he should take a small part of the liver with it. And elsewhere it says, and the diaphragm with part of the liver. This means, besides the liver and besides the kidneys, he must remove the diaphragm. Verse 5, Torah. Aaron's descendants must burn it up on the altar after the daily morning ascent offering is on top of the wood on the fire, as a fire offering pleasing to God. Verse 5, Rashi, means besides the ascent offering. We thus learn that the daily morning ascent offering must precede all other sacrifices on the altar pyre. Verse 6, Torah. If his sacrifice is a peace-promoting feast offering to God from the flock, whether male or female, he must bring it unblemished. Verse 7. If he brings a sheep as his sacrifice, he must bring it before God. Verse 7. If he brings a sheep, he must bring it before God. Since the designated parts of a sheep have an additional component that is not among the designated parts of the goat, for a sheep's tail is also offered They are therefore divided into two separate passages. Verse 8, Torah. He must lean his hand upon the head of his sacrifice and slaughter it in front of the tent of meeting. Aaron's descendants must dash the blood in an encircling manner onto the altar. Verse 8, Rashi. They shall then dash, two applications that are visible on four sides. He dashes the blood by means of the vessel, and only in the case of a sin offering does he place the blood on the altar with his finger. Verse 9, Torah. He must bring a fire offering to God from the peace-promoting feast offering as follows. He must remove its choicest part, the entire tail, beginning at the kidneys, the fat covering the innards, all the fat that is on the innards, the two kidneys along with the fat that is on them, and that is on the flanks. He must remove the diaphragm along with the kidneys and along with part of the liver. Verse 9 and 10. Literally, it's fat. Means here its choicest part. What is it? The entire tail. Means above the kidneys that give counsel. Verse 11, Torah. The priest must burn it up on the altar as food for the fire to God. Verse 11, Rashi. Means the food for the fire, offered for the sake of God on high. This denotes food in general. Similarly, we find, let us put a harmful plant in his food. And Belshazzar made a great feast. And for revelry, they make a feast. Verse 12. If the sacrifice is a goat, he must bring it before God. He must lean his hand upon its head and slaughter it in front of the tent of meeting. Aaron's descendants must dash the blood in an encircling manner onto the altar. He must bring food. He must bring from it his offering, a fire offering to God, the fat covering the innards, all the fat that is on the innards, the two kidneys along with the fat that is on them, and that is on the flanks. He must remove the diaphragm along with the kidneys and along with part of the liver. The priest must burn them up on the altar as food for the fire, with the intention that it is pleasing to God. All fat belongs to God. It is an eternal rule for all years, for all your generations. In all your habitations, you must consume neither any fat nor any blood. And that is the fourth Torah reading of the book of Leviticus, the portion of Vayikra. All right, let us read from the Daily Wisdom on the Parshiot from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Fourth Torah reading. What I just read was Leviticus chapter 3, verse 1 through 17. All right, I will begin. Someone wishing to draw close to God by praising him can elect to bring a peace offering, so called because it promotes peace in the world. The title of this daily wisdom on the Parshiot is called The Importance of Intention. God instructed Moses to tell the Jewish people if his sacrifice is a peace offering. All the sacrifices that the Torah has discussed from the beginning of the book of Leviticus to this point, including peace offerings, are voluntary offerings. The Torah begins to discuss obligatory offerings only after it has discussed all the voluntary offerings. By discussing voluntary offerings first, the Torah implies that all offerings, even obligatory ones, should be voluntary in essence. People were inspired to bring voluntary offerings because they appreciated the spiritual significance of these offerings. They knew that such offerings must express an inner process occurring within themselves, not within the animal. They also knew that what matters most is not the size of impressiveness of the animal, but the intention of the heart. Like all aspects of the sacrifices, this insight applies to our spiritual lives today as well. By studying the inner meaning and significance of the commandments that God obligates us to perform, we can fulfill them with the same inspiration and enthusiasm that usually characterize only voluntary practices. All right, and that is the daily wisdom on the Parshiot. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Shavua Tov. Laila Tov.